Ever wondered how we come to know the things we do? How do scientists unravel the mysteries of the universe? It's all thanks to a special process called the scientific method. This method is like a roadmap, guiding scientists as they quest for knowledge. It helps them understand the world around us, from the tiniest ant to the vast cosmos. Think of it like a detective solving a case, piecing together clues to discover the truth. The scientific method is our key to unlocking these secrets. So where do we start? With a question. Everything starts with curiosity. That's right, the cornerstone of the scientific method is asking a question. It's like planting a seed for a tree of knowledge. This question can be about anything that sparks your interest. It could be about the world around you, about how things work, or even about why things are the way they are. Let's consider a simple example. Have you ever wondered, why is the sky blue? Well, that's a perfect example of the type of question that can kickstart our scientific adventure. It's a question that makes us look up and think, and it's the beginning of a journey of exploration and discovery. Remember, there's no such thing as a silly question in science. Every question is a stepping stone towards understanding the wonderful world around us. The first step in our scientific journey is always a question. Once we have our question, what next? Time to hit the books. That's right, it's time for some good old-fashioned research. But why do we research? Well, research is like a map that guides us through the huge world of knowledge. It helps us understand what is already known about our question. For instance, if our question is why does the moon change shape? We can find loads of information about moon phases, astronomy, and even ancient myths. As we dig deeper into our research, we might stumble upon some fascinating facts that can help us refine our question or develop a hypothesis. Maybe our question evolves into, how do the moon's phases affect the tides on Earth? You see, research isn't just about finding answers, it's about discovering more intriguing questions and possibilities. So, don your detective hats, because every piece of information is a clue leading us to our hypothesis. Research sets the stage for our next step, making a prediction. Now that we're armed with knowledge, we can make an educated guess, or as scientists call it, a hypothesis. A hypothesis is like a detective's hunch in a mystery novel. It's our best guess based on all the clues we've gathered from our research. But remember, it's not just any guess, it's an educated guess that we can test. Let's use an example to make this clear. Let's say during our research we found out that plants need sunlight to grow. Our hypothesis could be, if a plant gets less sunlight, then it will grow slower. Notice how our hypothesis is specific and testable? We can easily design an experiment to test this hypothesis by comparing the growth of plants getting different amounts of sunlight. So a hypothesis is like a bridge between our research and our experiment. It's our prediction, our hunch, based on what we've learned. A hypothesis gives us a specific prediction to test. Now comes the fun part, time to experiment. Experiments are like detectives, they help us uncover the truth. In the world of science, they are the tools we use to test our hypothesis. But what are the elements of a good experiment? Let's dive in. Firstly, we have the variables. These are the aspects of the experiment that we change or control. Imagine we are experimenting to see if plants grow faster with music. Our variable would be the music we play to our plants. Next up, we have the controls. Controls are everything else in the experiment that we keep the same. In our plant experiment, the controls would be things like the type of plant we use, the amount of water we give them, and the light they get. By keeping these things constant, we can be sure that any changes we see are due to our variable. The music. It's like a grand game of spot the difference. We want to see if changing one thing, our variable, makes a difference to our end result. But to do that, we need to make sure everything else stays the same. But why are experiments so important? Well, they are the heart of the scientific process. They allow us to gather data, evidence that helps us see if our hypothesis was correct. Without experiments, we would just be guessing. And in science, we like facts, not guesses. So how do we conduct an experiment? We start by setting up our controls, then we introduce our variable. We observe, take notes, and collect data. It's like being a super sleuth, keeping an eye on all the clues. Remember, a good experiment is one that can be repeated by others and get the same results. So, keep detailed notes and be precise in your observations, and most importantly, have fun. Science is all about discovery, and there's nothing more exciting than uncovering the secrets of the universe. Experiments give us the data we need to answer our question. And with that, we're one step closer to becoming scientific detectives, ready to solve the mysteries of the world. With our experiment complete, what do we do with all this data? Well, let's dive in. The data we've gathered is like a treasure chest, filled with clues that will help us understand our experiment. Scientists, just like us, take this data and start to analyze it. That's a big word, isn't it? But it simply means we're going to look closely at our data to see what it's telling us. Think of it like being a detective, and our data is the evidence. We have to sort through it, organize it, maybe even put it into charts or graphs to make it easier to understand. It's like solving a puzzle. Each piece of data is a puzzle piece, and when we put them all together, we can see the big picture. Now, here's the exciting part. Analyzing our data helps us see if our hypothesis, our best guess, was correct. For example, if our hypothesis was that plants grow faster with sunlight, and our data shows that the plants we put in the sun did indeed grow faster, our hypothesis was correct. But what if our data doesn't support our hypothesis? Well, that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's pretty exciting too, because it means we've learned something new. Maybe our data shows that the plants grew faster in the shade, not the sun. That's an unexpected result, and it leads us to more questions. Why did the plants grow faster in the shade? What's different about the shade? This is how science works. Sometimes our data even leads us to a new hypothesis, and that means we get to do more experiments, gather more data, and learn even more. It's a never-ending cycle of curiosity and discovery, and that's what makes it so much fun. So remember, analyzing our data is like being a detective. We're searching for clues, piecing together a puzzle, and discovering new things. Data analysis helps us see if our hypothesis was correct. But even if it's not, we've learned something valuable, and that's what being a scientist is all about. Finally, we draw conclusions and share our findings. We've made it to the last part of our scientific adventure where we get to tie together all our efforts. So how do scientists do this? First, they take a good hard look at all the data they've collected from their experiments. They ask themselves, what does this information tell me? They search for patterns, anything that can help them better understand the question they started with. Then, they draw conclusions based on what the data shows. This could mean their hypothesis was right, or maybe it wasn't. And guess what? Both are okay. Science is all about learning and growing, even when things don't go as expected. Once they've drawn their conclusions, scientists don't keep their discoveries to themselves. Nope. They share their findings with others. They might write reports, give presentations, or even publish their work in scientific journals. This way, everyone can learn from their work, and maybe even build upon it with their own questions and experiments. Sometimes, the results of an experiment might lead to new questions. When that happens, the cycle of the scientific method starts all over again. It's like a never-ending journey of discovery. And there you have it, the scientific method, our tool for discovering the mysteries of the universe. So remember, the scientific method is a cycle of asking questions, doing research, making hypotheses, conducting experiments, analyzing data, drawing conclusions, and communicating results. It's like a detective solving a mystery. We start with a question like, why does the sun set? Then we research to see what others have found. Based on that, we make an educated guess or hypothesis. Next, we set up an experiment to test our hypothesis. It's like a play where we control all the actors and actions. After the show, we look at the data, like the number of applauses or boos. That's our analysis. Finally, we draw conclusions. Did the audience like the show? Did our hypothesis hold up? Then we communicate our findings. We might make a poster, write a report, or tell our friends. And then we start the cycle all over again with a new question. Keep asking questions, keep discovering, and who knows? You might be the next great scientist.